All right. Hello, everyone. Back. So I like to use this chart to kind of start off the COVID discussions. Hey, what's up, Mallard? How are you, man? I know COVID's kind of a tired, worn-out subject. People are probably tired of hearing about it, hearing about all the various opinions back and forth in the media, etc. Hey, what's up, Cheesy Cookie? Hey, Kat, how are you? And we can talk more, Kat, in a little bit if you want about smoking and stuff. I think that'd be a really good topic, actually. That maybe would help quite a lot of people. But yeah, I always like to start by looking at this because this is just the basic numbers, like data of what's going on with COVID right now. And this back here is right when it started in March, before we'd really been testing. And this is the first peak when we said, as a country, we finally said, all right, we got to shut everything down. This is when we shut everything down. Basically the whole country was quarantined for I don't know, a month and a half. Yeah, about from early mid-April to about 2 months. 2 months. So for about 2 months we were quarantined for real. And we were doing really well at bringing down the case load. We even got down to about 10, 15,000 cases a day at one point. And this is when we reopened the country right here. And this is the peak caseload about a little less than a month ago still. And then we started closing stuff down again. You noticing a pattern? We started mandating masks, closing things down. What do you know? Cases start going down again. However, it's now we've reached a critical mass of people that have been exposed, and so it's a ripple effect. We don't have any immunity in the community to stop it. And so if you extrapolate this out from the peak to now, which has been about a month, we've gone from a peak of we'll take out these outliers, probably about 65,000 cases a day to about 50,000 cases a day. And so that's in a month. So if you extrapolate that out to get back down to where we were before we reopened, which is about 15,000 cases a day, it's going to be another 3 months at least, is my guess. Probably another 3 months at that pace. And that's if we keep everything shut down. So you hear isolated cases of colleges opening up, and then guess what happens? Cases shoot up in that area, that college itself. University of North Carolina. Had to close. They actually had to close. Positivity rate for students was 14%. 130 students tested positive in the first week of opening up a college. So I know some of that is probably unavoidable, but at the same time, some of that is also because people were being irresponsible. So there's all kinds of reports of people holding parties, no masks, holding huge gatherings, and being irresponsible. So that's insane. That's fucking insane. I don't know how else to put it. That's fucking insane. The first week of college, 130 people on campus had COVID. If they hadn't shut it down immediately, the whole campus would have gotten infected in a few weeks. So, yeah, that's how bad it is. We can't reopen things or it spreads. I mean, it's just the way it is. We have to wait for a vaccine, is my opinion, and that's going to take a while. And There are vaccines in the works. There's a couple of them already in phase 3 trials. I don't know how long those trials are going to take. Those trials usually take over a year. They could take many years sometimes to be fully approved for use. And they're fast tracking things as much as possible. They call it Operation Warp Speed. But they said that they're not going to fast track and shortcut something unsafely. So my earliest estimate that I've heard is like beginning of 2021. If things go perfectly in those phase 3 trials, we may start seeing approval for the vaccines. And some of those companies have been given funds by the government to start pre-production. So like that normally doesn't happen. Like normally you make a vaccine and it gets approved, then you can start production. And production, ramping up production to millions and millions and millions and billions of people around the world takes a long time. So it takes months and months, many months. So they're like pre-starting that process as soon as they can. So that like when it gets approved, there'll be a bunch of vaccines like ready to go. But if it doesn't get approved, we'll have all these vaccines made that like are not approved and they just burned a bunch of money. 3 phases. The third phase is the longest, like largest phase. So phase 1 is basically, is it safe? And that's the smallest phase. And the reason that's a very small phase is because if it's not safe and they find that it's causing harm somehow, they've only harmed a very small number of people. And so those are basically our guinea pigs. So phase 1, so if they're in phase 3, it's been deemed safe to give at the dose that they're testing. Phase 2 is very limited data to show not only is it also safe, but it does something. It at least does something that we're trying to do. So phase 3 is then you do it over a very large sample. What's up, Yoshi? How are you? Am I full queue? What do you mean? What do you mean by full queue? Oh, we're just talking. We're doing a. Oh shoot! Did I not change my chat to just chat or my stream to just chatting? Sorry, I'll change it. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, I didn't change it. So Mallard, that is an excellent point. It shows short-term safety. You're right. Like if we give this dose to someone, are they going to have something bad happen to them right away? And that's partly what phase 3 does, is look at more long-term safety data and effectiveness over a much larger population. And there are things in history where, you know, we made a medicine and started using it and it was even approved. And then years later we discover like, oh shit, this medicine causes horrible things. Like one of the examples I always use for that is thalidomide. Or not thalidomide. Wait, no, it is thalidomide. Yeah, thalidomide. Horrible birth defects. Horrible birth defects. And they gave it to a bunch of pregnant women back in the day. Caused all these horrible birth defects. So, I mean, we don't always get it right. But we're desperate for a cure for some, or a vaccine for something that's affecting millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world eventually. Maybe even a billion plus, you know. I don't know how many there are cases there are worldwide right now. I haven't looked that up. Let's see. Worldwide cases in July surpassed 20 million. $22.6 million. So it's going to get 100 million plus by the time we're all said and done. So that's why they're fast tracking this, because if let's say you have at a 1+% death rate, let's say you have 100 million people that get affected. We just killed 1 million people. 1 million people just died from COVID. That's nuts, man. Is the vaccine even going to work? Isn't the coronavirus same failure as common cold viruses? There are no vaccines for those that work. So coronavirus is, I think it's possible to treat with a vaccine for a couple of reasons. One is the vaccine or the virus itself doesn't mutate even remotely as fast as the common cold viruses that circulate and the flu viruses that circulate. It has a much slower mutation rate, and so it actually would be a good target for a vaccine. A better target than the flu, and we vaccinate for the flu every year and have mixed success with that. The other thing is that the vaccine phase 2 trials that they've passed, the ones that have passed and are now going into phase 3, they showed that 2 doses of the vaccine that they were testing gave more antibody response than the actual disease itself. So that's very promising. Now, the question, and this is why you do a phase 3 trial, is how long does that immunity last? That's an unknown. It's worth a gamble, though, if you can give something safely that you know gives an immune response and hope that at least that sticks. It's better than doing nothing. So yeah, I actually think it is a good target for a vaccine. And if we are able to come up with a good vaccine, then this may become something sort of like the flu vaccine. I don't know if it'd be yearly with how slow the mutation rate is. It could become something that they recommend every few years. I would not be surprised if it ends up on the standard adult vaccination schedule now. I think it's necessary, honestly. At least from what we know. Like you said, sometimes things get revealed in time that prove that we're wrong about things. But from what we know right now, that looks like the best plan. I know that Italy numbers are going up. Yeah, I mean, a lot of places are. Because, like, Italy had it locked down for a long time, and then, it's like you start letting people back out to the public, like, shit happens. So then there's the question of how long do we shut down society and let this disease that will kill 1% of the people that it affects, how many deaths is getting society functioning worth again? And then there are other things to look at, like when society's not functioning because we're shutting things down, how much of a health effect is that on people in that regard? People lose their jobs. People lose their health insurances. People can't afford their medicines. They can't afford their doctor visits. What kind of morbidity, mortality are we seeing from that? That's a lot harder to study, but you have to take that into account. What's worse? Which is worse? And you try to pick the one that's the least worst in this situation, because they're both not good. Frumpy Rumpus, hi Doc, you're the man. Oh, thank you. I love your name. I told you that yesterday, but I still love it. Or 2 days ago. But yeah, welcome, man. We're just doing a little medical chat. We're talking about COVID first, and then kind of opening up to questions after. And there's one more thing I wanted to make sure we talked about besides the kind of the general cases and like prognosis and vaccines, and that's the some of the misinformation that's being put out there in the media from the government and companies that are trying to make a buck off of this. What about the issue the research was showing with the existing coronavirus vaccination attempts on animals, the autoimmune lung pathology response upon re-challenge in the virus? Are phase 3 trials going to cover that? No, they're not going to. So We base a lot of things that we do on animal studies, but animals honestly are really just used as guinea pigs. I know that sounds horrible. They're just used as guinea pigs to see if it's even worth risking harming a human being to try it. And I mean, medical history is full of animal studies that don't pan out in humans. It works better in animals. It works worse in animals. They have different responses than we do. They have different environmental pressures than we do. Phase 3 trials are going to cover human beings, and they're going to cover, does it cause immunity? Is it safe? Does the immunity last? And if it lasts through a 6-month, 1 year, super short phase 3 trial, that's enough to at least protect the population for the next year. And then, if it mutates again, like it could become a yearly vaccine. I don't think it will, but I think that there's just too much unknown. But at the same time, we basically have to rush something out, because if we don't rush something out, then this is what you get. You get either this anytime you stop quarantining people, or you get this, but shutting down the country. I mean, we just had to shut down a large university. That is not a small thing. People are out of work. People are depressed. People are broke. People are losing everything in their lives from COVID. Small businesses that people have worked their whole lives are shutting down, going bankrupt, going broke. The economy is not exchanging money and services. And so how long do you do that so that you can get this? And how much of this do you accept? Because everything that you accept of this is 1% of those people are going to die. So, a lot of times people don't think about 1% as like a big deal. I think it's a humongous number. That's a massive number, because if you take that over the 6 billion people on Earth, and let's say we all got COVID, I mean, holy shit, guys. That's 6 million people that just died. So, if you were in a room with 100 people, and a doctor/scientist walked into the room and said, "Hey, just want to let you guys know, if we don't do anything at all from moving forward, 1 or 2 of you is going to die." And then they walked out of the room. How fucking nervous would you be that you might be that one person? Just 100 people. That smaller scale usually hits people harder when you think about it that way. And let's say it's not just 100 people. Let's say 20 of those people are your friends and family. And then it starts to change how you think about things a little bit. And so it's important that we get something now. And so the first key is it safe? Because you know what? If we give a vaccine to everybody and it's safe and it doesn't work as great as we wanted it to, and it's the best option we have, at least we're not hurting anybody with it. And we're potentially giving at least something better than nothing. And there's the chance that it's actually really effective and could rescue our country from this. So most, vaccines take years and years to develop, and they go through a much more time rigorous process. But we're being pushed right now by, a very sudden thing that's about 10 times as deadly as the flu. So why are we not the same? 2 reasons. So there's 2 reasons. One is this initial spike occurred because our country didn't take it seriously. If you look at the countries where things are doing well, there's probably other factors there besides just taking it seriously early and locking down. Part of it's also size. So the United States is a very large country with a lot of people. It's spread out. And but the main thing is that we didn't take it seriously. We were literally told by the president of our country, and I'm not getting political here, this is just a fact. We were told by the president of our country that COVID is a hoax. We were told by the leadership in our country that COVID was a hoax, that it wasn't real, that it wasn't going to affect us, that it was made up by China, all this bullshit. And we operated like nothing was going to happen. And all the while, these cases that are not shown on this chart, this is the US chart, this is because we're not testing. That's the only reason cases weren't showing up, because we weren't testing for it. And we got this. We got this. This is already way too much. We were way too late before we finally started doing something about it. This is 30,000 people every fucking day getting the disease. That is no small thing. So then we finally do something about it, way too late, but it's working. And so when we've gotten a very, very minimal response, it's a significant but mild response over 2 months, people go, I'm tired of being locked up. I'm tired of being told I have to wear a mask. I'm tired of my rights being taken away. I want to be free. And then so our leadership says, fine, we're America. People should be free here. Okay, this is what freedom costs. Right here. And for every one of these lines, 1% of those people died. Every day there were 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 cases a day, and 1% of those people die. This is the cost of people being entitled and wanting their independence. And our leadership saying COVID's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. COVID's fine. We're fine. We're not fine. This is not fine. That's just dangerous information. And the reason that I think that the government has come out with this information is they don't want to be blamed for a catastrophe. This is a fucking catastrophe. So they want to just say it's not actually happening. It's not real. All those numbers are a lie. The leadership in our country actually said we need to stop testing. We need to stop testing so much. We won't have as many cases if we don't test as much. Are you fucking kidding me? We just won't test people and let them die, and we won't track it so that we don't look bad. And then they peddle all kinds of lies and things that are unproven. I mean, some of the information coming out is so irresponsible, saying things like hydroxychloroquine is a cure, oleandrin is a cure. Have you guys ever heard of oleandrin? Yeah, the play is to move out of the U.S. It's not a bad play right now. No other country is going to let you in. Other countries don't want Americans there. We're the fucking epicenter of COVID. We're an embarrassment to developed countries. All because we can't be inconvenienced in wearing a mask. We can't be inconvenienced in not leaving our house. Like, okay, well, I mean, then you're to blame for these people getting COVID and dying. Sorry. From a public health perspective, I mean, I'm suffering just as much. I stay home. I never fucking leave my house. I can't get my job back right now because of COVID. It has delayed everything possible to get my job back. It is what it is. It sucks. I don't think that I should be entitled to anything special if it makes people get sick and die. So, this is America. This is America right here. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do. We now have too many people that have it. So once you start letting people out, it's going to spread because there's no immunity. So the only option is quarantine until vaccine, or you accept this. It's bad. It's really tough. And it's not, and I don't even know how you quantify how many cases have spread around because people won't wear masks. How many pictures have you seen of people sitting outside at restaurants? I don't know how the fuck they're open. The local government said we are allowing restaurants open. People go out to all these restaurants and bars and they're not wearing masks. They're walking along the streets with their entire family of like 6 people, no masks. I've been to the store very infrequently, but when I do go, I wear a mask. And I've seen entire families there, no masks. Kids coughing. You know, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? And the stores won't kick them out. My mother went to the store, and she told the manager of the store, hey, there's someone not wearing a mask. I don't trust that. You know, it's a local mandate by the law right now that we have to wear a mask out in public. And the store wouldn't enforce it because they didn't want to upset their customers. That's America. And that's where we live. Or a lot of us anyway. I'm sure there's maybe some EUs and stuff in here that are maybe lurking or haven't said anything, but or Canadians. And you know, Canada has a little bit easier job of controlling the infection because they're just so spread out. They're low population, huge space. It's a lot easier to control, but they're also still not doing things as irresponsibly as we are. So, you know, the whole notion that there's a cure, that like hydroxychloroquine is a cure, oleandrin is a cure, is not only wrong, but it's dangerous information to tell people. It's dangerous. It's just false. It's not safe. We don't know if it's safe. We don't know if it works. They're taking things that are like, it would be like if we just took the vaccine after a phase 1 trial and said, we have a vaccine, give it to 1 billion people. You can't do that. That's so unsafe and so dangerous. You seen a lady in a store with 5 kids, none of them wearing a mask, and the worker didn't say anything. Yeah. They don't say anything because it's America. You don't bother your customers. It's terrible. So I was watching this interview with this guy.
This thing works. It's the miracle of all time.
The miracle of all time.
The guy is plugging what he says is a miracle cure for COVID-19.
So this is being, this is actually being backed by Donald Trump.
It hasn't been tested, let alone approved by the FDA.
You are telling people that this
the miracle of
COVID,
all time.
You have no studies to prove it.
And they're talking about oleandrin.
People were
I got my own study. When I took the
Anderson Cooper sure wasn't buying it.
How are you different than a snake oil salesman? You have no medical background.
But that hasn't stopped My Pillow tycoon Mike Lindell from taking his so-called cure to his buddy, the president.
Is it something you would support?
Is it something that people are talking about very strongly? We'll look at it.
Experts we spoke to say steer clear.
We see no benefits from this drug, only potential hazards.
Right. So this guy, who's a professor at Vanderbilt University, is not being listened to, but a salesman with no background who has a financial stake in a company trying to sell a supplement and saying it's a cure and it's being supported by the president of the United States as a cure for COVID. That's the world that we live in. This guy, who's a world expert, I mean, Vanderbilt is a world-class medical school. And this guy's a professor, and he's saying, we don't... You really think he's going to come out and say, oh, no, this won't work because he just wants to shit on people? No, that guy is probably dying for a cure. He would do anything for a cure. Everybody wants to be the first to say that they know what the cure is or prove a cure. And he's saying, this is irresponsible. And I've looked at the studies myself. There's not a single study of oleandrin on people that shows safety. None. Not a single one. And that guy actually lied on CNN interview and said that there was a 1,000-person study that he's aware of that said there was safety. And then Anderson Cooper keeps saying, well, can you show us the study where it shows that it's at least safe to take in people? And he couldn't produce the study. Of course he couldn't, because it doesn't exist.
Toxic effects. So we urge no one
infectious
to
disease
follow this
professor.
advice.
When I spoke to Lindell, whose My Pillow commercials are all over Fox News, he was sticking to his endorsement of the COVID-19 product.
It's safe, so why not try it? That's all we're saying.
Why not try it is not science. Why not try it gives false hope.
You're going to be embarrassed when the FDA has the trial with humans. It hasn't been published yet.
Oh, it hasn't been published
yet. I
yet.
know
Oh,
that you
okay,
don't
okay.
know.
And
Fair,
President
fair.
Trump
Yeah,
is
it
coming
hasn't
under
been
fire
published yet.
once again for the lack of social distancing at his
That's
rallies.
it. It just hasn't been published yet, guys. Oh boy. Yeah, so this is when I Googled it. It looks like the media is actually doing a pretty good job of trying to cover this. Yeah, isn't that ridiculous, Mallard? It's not even a medication. It's a supplement. And so it has no safety data, no efficacy data in any way. And that's being pitched as a cure. And now, if you're the president and you're being responsible, you would come out and say, no, that is years away from ever being known as a safe option for this. Instead, he says, oh, well, they're talking about it, so maybe it's something, maybe we should try it. And the problem is like the average person, you can't blame them. It's not their fault. They don't have medical training, but they believe what they're told on TV and by the government and by our White House and president. And they believe what they're told. And that's why it's such a huge responsibility to tell things that are safe and true. And that's why I feel passionate about disproving some of this crap. So, you know, like hydroxychloroquine is not a medicine that was ever designed to treat viruses, like coronavirus. And even so this is what they do. They take something where, in a study like oleandrin, for example, there are studies that show that it has some antiviral activity in vitro. So for those of you who don't know what in vitro means, it means in a test tube. It literally means in a test tube, outside of even an animal's body. So it hasn't even been animal studied yet. And some antiviral activity, there are fucking thousands of compounds that have some antiviral activity. And if you actually tested them on a very specific virus inside of a human being when they're infected with it, or as a prevention, it would do nothing. It would do absolutely nothing. And that's basically like where snake oil comes from. That's like where snake oil comes from. All the stuff that like Dr. Oz pitches and stuff. They'll quote some study where it says, you know, it has this activity against this disease, or it helped lower, you know, fat cells and blah, blah, blah in vitro. And then no one knows what in vitro is unless you're a scientist or a doctor or you're curious about medical research. And all that means is in a test tube, there was maybe some little tiny bit of evidence. It was never quantified. It was never controlled. It was never done in an animal. It was never done in a human. In vivo is really what you want to see. And you want double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. So they take this tiny, tiny little piece of data, and then they go, oh, it's a miracle cure. And like everyone's just trying to keep us from using it because, you know, of course, that's what doctors and scientists are there to do, is to just keep us from doing anything that helps us, right? They just don't want us to have the miracle cure. I would give everything I had. If someone came to me right now and said, hey, look, we can guarantee that we'll save the entire world from COVID, but we got to take all your shit that you've ever owned and will ever own right now, I would do it. But do you really think there's like every doctor is in cahoots to like hide the secret miracle cure from you? Like, it's insane. It's insane. But people are so afraid and so desperate for help that they'll listen to reasoning like that. And so it's used against them. They're manipulated. It's awful. I think it's awful. It's disgusting treatment of people. It really is, because it preys on fear. It preys on fear. So there is no cure for COVID that is known. There's no cure for COVID that's even remotely close. There's nothing that's been tested. There's nothing at all. Like, first thing we're doing is just working on a vaccine to try to stop. And that has real data, but it, you know, they're not just going to release it off of phase 1, phase 2 data. They need to do the full thing because of stuff like what Mallard said earlier. Things pop up when you go over time. You can't just test people for a few weeks and then go, oh, this is fine, we'll give it to the whole world, because what if in 6 months it hurts everyone or it doesn't work anymore? So they have to do longer trials before it's safe. So yeah, so right now that's where we're at. And if we're shutting down universities, then why on earth should anything else be open except for essential services, really? You know, things like medical services, even medical services. You should be doing everything remote that you possibly can. You know, I have my appointments for my own health stuff on Zoom. You know, there's almost no reason to go into a doctor unless you really need to be examined or like tested for something. Everything can be done remotely, and it should be until we know we're safe. That's my opinion. Because otherwise, millions more people will die eventually. I'm convinced. Any questions on like oleandrin or hydroxychloroquine or the vaccines or like just the current state of things? A lot of times people ask, like, when do you think this is going to end? I don't think it will until we get a vaccine. Or until, you know, everyone's gotten it. So, well, not necessarily everyone, but like, you know, in the flu season, almost everyone gets the flu. Most people get it, whether they know it or not. Tons of people get it. So it's going to be a while. And I think this will follow us for years. We're going to have to find a way to protect ourselves against it in the future. This is now a human virus. It used to be an animal virus. It's now a human virus. People do this same kind of thing in Facebook support groups for fluoroquinolone toxicity, and it's like, man, none of that shit actually works. It's all wishful thinking. Yeah, it's because your life is in danger. You're in fear. I mean, it's just like, you know, like miracle cures for cancer and this and that, and people will go pay thousands of dollars for it because they're desperate. It's like, do you really think if your doctor didn't have a cure for you that they wouldn't try it? And then the other thing is, sometimes maybe there is something that can be effective, but it's dangerous, and you have to look at the public. If it's dangerous enough, like, yeah, maybe it'll work for like 1 out of this many people, but in 1 out of this many people, you know, it's going to kill them. You cannot go and give that as a blanket recommendation to the population because you'll kill more people than you help. And so you get these like N=1 sample sizes where someone goes, well, I took it and it worked. Well, you got lucky that it didn't hurt you. That's the real story there. You got lucky that you took it and it helped you and it didn't hurt you. You give that to 100 people, it's going to hurt a lot of them. So that's why you need large studies. That's why you need, you know, tens and tens of thousands of people, at least, if not hundreds of thousands, if you can get it. But most big controlled studies are at least tens of thousands of people on that scope. So that you can really look at the data. How many people does this hurt? How many people does this help? How long does it last? What other side effects are there? What other complications are there? What's the cost? Hey, what's up, kids? How are you? We're just chatting about COVID and snake oil that's going around out there. Things like oleandrin and hydroxychloroquine and, you know, Russia saying they have a vaccine is another hoax that's out there. They're all hoaxes. There's no cure. There's no vaccine. There's nothing that works. There's a few things in the works right now for vaccines, and it's going to take many months for them to be completed. And in the meantime, this is what we have to deal with, is this. And it's slowly going down again because a lot of parts of the country are quarantining again. So, any questions on COVID? Thoughts, questions, concerns? Yeah, and if you are okay with looking up disturbing imagery, just to give you a picture of what happens when a drug gets approved and we don't know the long-term effects and it ends up hurting a lot of people, look up thalidomide flipper babies. It's disturbing, just to warn you. But it's a real medical history thing. It's fucked up what happened. And that kind of shit could happen if you give someone an unproven supplement or medication. So that's why we have to be safe. How are you, kids? How was your gaming today? How was school? I hope you're doing well. And if there's no other questions or thoughts or concerns on COVID, I was going to talk about smoking, effects of smoking, how to quit smoking. There's some people in our stream who are smokers and wanted to talk about it. So thought that'd be a good topic. And then, of course, open question answer is always encouraged. I'll do my best to answer it. I don't know everything, but I know a lot. I'm a generalist. So I know a lot about I know a little about a lot, I guess is the best way to put it. What's the best way to convince someone to make a positive change in their life? Oh, that's a really good question. So positive motivation. I mean, that actually fits in with like the smoking cessation topic, because that's a big part of smoking cessation is motivation. It's that's a really, really hard thing to do. So honestly, I know this sounds like a cop-out answer, but this is true, and this actually has been studied. The number one factor for like convincing someone, like getting someone to make a change in their life, is if they're ready. If they want to. Basically, like, we're trained, like for smoking cessation, for example. If you ask the question if they're ready or not, are you ready? Do you want to? And the answer is no, you're done. Because you're not going to get anywhere. You can't really convince someone yourself to change something like that. Like a big positive change in their life. If they're not wanting to or ready to, they're not going to. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm sober for 2 years on the 23rd of this month, so 3 days from now. And in AA, there's a similar sentiment about frothy emotional appeal. What is the line? Yeah, people can't fix us or get us sober. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. It's so true. It's so true. They have to have a consequence that happens to them somehow. Now, you can try to highlight those consequences. Oh, Rewolfness. What's up, man? Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody who just came in. So we're doing a just chatting segment here on medical
The doctor
stuff.
will see you now.
Trench Dog 55. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, we were just kind of finishing up with the COVID summary and moving into how to make changes in your life, how to make positive changes, how to do things like quit smoking, lose weight, how do you like motivate someone else to do that? And so Cheese Cookie had asked, what's the best way to convince someone to make a positive change in their life? And my answer was, it's kind of a cop-out, but basically, if they're not ready and they're not wanting to, you're not going to convince them. And that's been actually studied, because we've done studies on how do you efficiently use your time with someone to try to get them to quit smoking, because smoking is a huge preventative health issue in primary care. And the answer really was, there is no magic technique to get people to quit smoking. If they're not ready, they're not going to. So the question to first ask is, do you want to quit? Do you feel like you're ready to quit? Because if somebody's like, I don't know, I don't think I can quit right now because I'm under a lot of stress, or I just don't feel like I can give it up yet, or I don't want to quit, fuck off, doc. If there's any answer in that spectrum at all, you're not going to get through to that person. And I also gave the example of the Alcoholics Anonymous, because I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'll be sober for 2 years, 3 days from now. I mean, my 2-year sober birthday. Is you can't fix someone. You can't keep someone else sober. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. I love that line. Frothy emotional appeal. So that's what a lot of us often go to, right? You can't keep doing this. Your family loves you. You can't keep doing this. You're going to ruin, your life. You're going to die young. You're going to ruin our marriage. Shit doesn't work. There has to actually be a consequence that occurs in their life somehow. And then they have to hit their bottom. And if they don't experience that bottom, and everyone has their different bottoms, tough love doesn't work either. No, not really. Not really. I mean, unless you do something really major and it's more for yourself and not them. Like, hey, you know what? I'm not staying with you anymore. You're a drunk. You're a drug addict. I can't be with you anymore. I got to leave. It's possible that eventually that consequence will make them think, but you can't do it for that reason and expect that it's going to work. So they have to hit their own bottom before they decide to change. And everyone's bottom is different. So like weight loss. I can give a personal example. So I used to weigh about 50 pounds more than I do now. Not in a good way. I wasn't like The Rock, I was out of shape, overweight, unhealthy. I was obese. And my bottom was I was walking up the stairs one day to my office at work. And it was a new job. And my old job, I never had to go upstairs. I was on the ground floor. This new job, I had to walk up 2 flights of stairs. And the elevator was supposed to be reserved for customers, patients, unless you just really needed the elevator. And so I walk up the stairs. I'm short of breath. And I'm huffing and puffing my first day at work, walking into my office, and I'm embarrassed. And I walk through the patient lobby and through the nurse's station to get to my desk, and I'm out of breath, and I feel like shit. And then I bend over to tie my shoe, and my belly hits my belt, and I'm even more short of breath, and it's kind of uncomfortable, and it hurts. And I had this epiphany. Fuck. What have I let myself get to, I'm out of breath. I'm embarrassed. I'm in pain. I can barely even tie my own fucking shoe. This is horrible. This feels horrible. And I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I don't want to be a doctor who tells other people to change their life in a positive way. And they see me huffing and puffing up the stairs looking like shit. 75 pounds overweight. So, yes, and I've only lost 50 of that. I'm working on it. And everyone, that might not be someone else's bottom. Someone else's bottom might be 100 pounds later when they can barely even walk because now their knees have horrible arthritis, or their doctor told them they have heart disease because they've been obese so bad for so long. It's a different, maybe they have a heart attack. I can't count how many people that's their life-changing event. They have a heart attack. They leave the hospital and they go, fuck, man, I'm changing my life. And maybe it's too little too late. Maybe it's not. Maybe it was lucky and it was just a small one. And so they can change their life from that. Everybody has a different bottom. And for some people, it's, man, I'm 10 pounds overweight and I don't like how I feel. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I mean, everyone's different. So it has to be internal motivation. Once they have the internal motivation, though, then you can help them stick with it. That's where outside, external factors really can help. So if you have someone who's like, you know what? Fucking A, man. I'm so tired of being short of breath and coughing all the time. I'm going to quit smoking. They had to get to that point where they were coughing and short of breath all the time. Someone telling them, I'm your doctor and smoking's bad for you, or I'm your wife and I hate watching you cough and you smell like cigarettes all the time, and that shit's not going to work. But once they've gotten to the point where they say, I don't want to cough, I don't want to be short of breath, I don't want to feel like shit every day, I want to quit, that's when you jump into action and you give them encouragement and you motivate them. you support them, you be there for them, you remind them, but all those things, none of those things are going to work unless they want to do it. But then after that, motivation can really help. So just being a regular reminder, positive support, motivation. You can do it. Let's do it together. That's even better. Like if you have someone you can do it together with, that's highly motivating, actually. That's been proven to be highly, highly motivating. So like when couples quit smoking together, way more successful. When you have regular visits with a life coach for motivational interviewing, success is better. So yeah, you can help, but they have to get there first. And then once they're there, you need to be there. Check on them every day. How's it going? Fucking annoy them. Persistence. Because it won't really annoy them if they really want to do it. So just be present for them and be positive and be supportive. That's where you're at, Catalia. That's awesome. Maybe corny, but time speaks. Fuck yeah, it does, Real Wolf. And so like in AA, when we're talking with other addicts and alcoholics, we have the term like, are you a low bottom drunk? Like, did you drunk drive and crash into 7 cars and kill someone and that's why you finally quit drinking? Or are you a high bottom drunk? Like you got drunk a couple times, and had a bad hangover and know that your dad's an alcoholic, so you're going to quit now. Like that is very rare, but it does happen. So, and there's low bottom and high bottom and then everything in between and everything that you decide to change on. I wanted to ride my bike a few weeks ago, but no, it was 95 degrees till 6 p.m. at night. Oh, God, that sounds miserable, Penguin. Yeah, I like to ride my bike too. And so when I do ride my bike in the hot seasons, you got to get up really early. You just got to get up early and do it. If you have any time in the early morning, you got to get up. You can even look at the hourly weather and like see like, okay, at 7 a.m., it's going to be 67 degrees. By 8 a.m., it's already 74. By 9 a.m., it's already 80 degrees. And so then you kind of like, when your range is, when you can go out and exercise. Otherwise, get a gym membership or work out in your house in the air conditioning somehow. What happens if the person seemingly has no end rock bottom? They die from it. I mean, they might, if it's a health problem, they'll die from it, or they'll just, suffer consequences until the end of their life. It's sad, but that's true. I mean, I've watched people drink themselves to death as a doctor and as an alcoholic who, is in the rooms with other drunks. People die from that all the time. People die from smoking and their complications all the time. You're telling somebody as they're literally being told they need oxygen. You need oxygen. That's why you're so out of breath, and you literally can't even walk across the house that you live in to go to the bathroom without oxygen because you're continuing to smoke, and they still are smoking. They're still smoking while they're on oxygen. I mean, what do you do? What do you do? That person literally can't even walk to the bathroom in their house without carrying a giant oxygen tank. They can no longer do anything that they ever enjoyed to do physically. They can't even go out in public, really. They can't do anything. They can't even make it through a shopping trip at the store. They cannot be enjoying that way of life. And they're still smoking. I mean, what do you do? I don't know. I mean, there's some people that they're never going to change. And that's addiction for you. But, and that can happen in almost anything. It can happen in eating. That can happen in, alcohol, drugs, any activity, overspending, gambling, like all those things can ruin your life if you don't stop. And your rock bottom might be you ruin your entire life and or die from it. Are those people mentally ill? I would say it would probably be categorized as an addiction at that point. But they may also have other reasons for why they're unable to change. Maybe mentally they don't have enough function. Maybe they have another mental health disorder, like dual diagnosis, we call it. You know, somebody who has schizophrenia and they're a drug addict, like, whew, man, trying to get them to quit, like, it's hard enough to get somebody who has a normal brain to quit smoking or quit doing drugs, quit drinking, to lose weight. Imagine trying to help someone make those changes when they're mentally ill at baseline. So it may not necessarily be like they're mentally ill because they refuse to stop doing what they're doing or make a positive change. It may be secondarily they're unable to change those things because they're mentally ill. There's an interesting correlation, for example, since I mentioned schizophrenia, 80% of people who have schizophrenia smoke. Did you guys know that? 80%. Because they're just more prone and they can succumb to addictive issues much more easily for some reason. So if you have schizophrenia and you're trying to beat an addiction, it is extremely difficult. So there's an entirely different category for people who at baseline have a mental illness and they have some sort of an addiction or, have a huge physical health problem that is from, behavioral choices and need lifestyle modification. Way harder to treat when someone's mentally ill at baseline. They have major depressive disorder. How are you going to get someone to lose weight when they can't even get themselves out of bed, on a normal day? So there are mentally ill issues that make it very difficult to make changes, for sure. Or they don't have any ability to comprehend language, and for whatever reason, various brain issues. They're just not intelligent enough to understand the consequences. There is that kind of issue. But like for your average person, if they don't have those other issues, then I would say, if you can't stop eating, you can't stop smoking, you can't stop drinking, you can't stop doing, usually it's stopping a bad behavior that we're talking about. I'm making that jump here. It's an addiction. It's you're addicted and you need professional help. It's very, very challenging to break addictions when they're truly wired up here. It is a large number, 80%. It's nuts. Hello, I'm Wake again. What are we talking about? We're talking about making positive changes in your life. What does it take? How can you do it? And my response was, you can't really help someone, because the original question started, how do you help someone else make a positive change in their life? And the answer was, probably not what they wanted to hear or what everyone wanted to hear, but you can't help someone make a change until they want to do it themselves. Once they've reached that point, though, then you really can be of benefit to them. But they have to reach the point where they want to change on their own. And usually that requires some sort of consequence in their life that's happening right now. Because human beings, we don't respond very well to delayed consequences. So like if someone said, hey, if you smoke that cigarette, you're going to get lung cancer tomorrow. Who the fuck would smoke that? Like, I don't know almost anyone that would even remotely try it for the very first time. If it was, you're probably going to get lung cancer tomorrow. If you, like, you're just going to get cancer when you smoke that, like, tomorrow. And then you'll have 3 months to live. Nobody would smoke it, right? But when you say, well, you're going to get lung cancer in 30 years, that changes things a lot. And so delayed consequences are a huge problem. And so people have to have a consequence that occurs. And it can be really horrible consequences for some people, and it can be minor ones for others. It's impossible to say what kind of consequence is going to take for the individual, but it has to happen. And then once it does, then you're there for support and check on them every day, remind them every day, let them know that you're there. You want to help them. If they fail or if they have setback, support them, let them know that you are there to help them, that they can do it again, they can start over, etc. Have them, going to counseling. That's when going to counseling really helps. Going to counseling doesn't do shit unless you're ready and you want help. But if you do, counseling is awesome. Health coach, counseling, mental health counseling, all that stuff helps a lot more when you're ready. Even if you continually alert them to consequences and link them to negative emotions they're feeling, that won't influence them. No, it won't. In fact, what we've found, at least as a doctor, from a doctor's perspective, so all of my experience on this is as a physician, the outcomes usually, from a physician standpoint, if you're constantly harassing them, basically, you're just harassing them that this life choice that you're doing is bad for you, even though they've told you over and over again they're not willing to change, they're not ready to change, they don't want to change, you actually make things worse. You can actually make things worse. You'll ruin your relationship with that person. And so then when they are ready to quit, they're not going to listen to anything you have to say. In fact, they may not even be seeing you as a patient anymore, because fuck you. Fuck that doctor who keeps telling me that I'm shit for smoking. That's kind of how they see it. And he doesn't listen to me. I told him I'm not ready, and he just keeps harassing me every time I'm in there. I went in there because my ankle hurt when I was playing basketball, and he started talking to me about smoking again. They're not going to come back to you. And they're not going to listen to you if they do come back. You actually ruin your relationship. You want to build trust with the person. So, they found that if the person trusts you and has rapport with you, they're more willing to listen to you when you help them change things. So this is just an anecdotal experience, but I think it fits with that, and I'm not shocked by the outcome. The doctor that I saw that got the most people to quit smoking, it was phenomenal what he was able to do. And I don't think it was because he was some phenomenal doctor. He is a really good doctor, but it's because he was taking care of his hometown. So he grew up there. Everyone knew who he was in a town of 2,000 people. Went away for college and med school and everything. Got his family practice certification, came back to his old town, and he's now one of 2 town doctors there, and he knows everybody. So when he would tell me to go see a patient, I worked with him when I was a medical student. They had us do rural medicine rotation for 6 weeks, and he's like, "Hey, go see room 3. That's Miss Jones. She was my English teacher in high school." I mean, that's how well he knew everyone. And I started noticing in every chart almost, it was former smoker, quit date, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how the fuck did you get so many people to quit smoking? I'm this kind of bright-eyed med student who just, I think he has the magic, idea and cure to get people to quit. He just said, they trust me. Everyone knows me here. And so when we actually finally get to the point where they're ready to potentially quit, I pounce on it and they listen to me because they trust me, and I don't fuck their trust up. I wait until they're open to me to talk about it. So yeah, you can actually make it worse, Mallard. This isn't a did you know because it's not proven, but I'm working on a paper about neurological underpinnings of MDD, and my hypothesis is that someone's score on the revised social anhedonia scale, which is a symptom of MDD. So MDD, I'm assuming you're referring to major depressive disorder, just for those who might be wondering. I want to make sure that we're communicating about the right thing. Is reflective of their white matter health in the reward circuitry. So white matter health can help determine MDD severity. Yeah, it can. So they've actually done functional MRI studies. They've done functional MRI studies on stuff like that. So a functional MRI is when they actually look at the brain live with activity on an MRI. And they found that people who are already diagnosed with major depressive disorder have less brain mass, active brain matter, and just less activity. So they can inject chemicals into the bloodstream that should show metabolic activity and light up. It's like radio traced, so it lights up on the MRI when there's brain like metabolic activity in a section of the brain, and those areas don't light up sometimes even at all in someone who has major depressive disorder. So yeah, that's actually been studied in functional MRIs. And so guess what lights up that stuff? Video games. I fucking love that. Video games are a natural antidepressant. I'm not bullshitting you just because I'm a gamer on Twitch and I'm biased. Like, I was so pleasantly surprised when I saw that somebody was actually doing that kind of study. Like, video games were being studied for real. Because what originally happened is in the research, they found that there was a link between video games and depression. And the link was people who play video games are more likely to have major depression. And so anti-video game people just jumped all over that. And they're like, see, video games are bad. Video games cause depression. You know, all the parents who are just like, video games are toxic for my kid. And like, they just jumped all over it. And they were like, look, we have proof. See? And that's not how research works. You can't take a correlation and then make up your own causation. People who play video games are more likely to have depression. That does not mean that the video games caused depression, but that's what your anti-video game agenda jumped all over. What it turns out is that most of the time, now we'll get to that there is sometimes where video games can cause depression. Most of the time what it is that people who are depressed found that video games made them feel better, and so they were going to video games as self-medication. How many of you in this chat, when you feel depressed, go play video games because it makes you feel better? Oh my God, World of Warcraft got me through depression. Seriously. And there's a lot of factors there because video games are complicated, especially modern video games. There's a lot of things going on there. There's goal-directed activity. There's cooperation. There's competition. There's social activity involved. There's a feeling of community. If you're playing, online games, or you're doing things on Twitch to incorporate as part of your game playing. Part of playing DBD is hanging out in DBD streams and hanging out with other DBD players. And you have like goals. I want to get better at this. I want to learn this, and you have, accomplishments, and you also have rewards. So, and modern video games are really fucking good at this. They've got, reward boxes that pop open with colors and sounds, and you get random rewards, and it's so cool and fun, especially when you get the one you wanted. It's like a slot machine. So that is the problem too. So it can cause depression. They found that the activity in the positive reward areas of the brain from playing video games actually starts to drop if you're playing them too much. And too much is sort of a subjective thing. It's different for everybody. But, basically it can become an addiction itself. So you're like using it to try to treat depression, and maybe you're even like using it as a distraction from smoking or whatever it is, but it becomes its own addiction, and then it causes your depression actually to get worse sometimes. So that's just that just proves like a very generic talking point that gets stated a lot when it comes to how do you have good mental health, balance, moderation. Almost nothing's good in excess. So yeah, that's cool. You have to tell me more about your paper when you're done, because that's a very active area of study. Thank you for the hydrate. Still fine-tuning my hypothesis to focus on a very specific aspect, but I found it to be an interesting relation. Yeah, you'll probably end up learning a lot more about it than I know if you're doing that detailed of study on it. So I'd love to hear what you find out. How many times my doctor and other people have told me to stop smoking and show me the risk, and I'm still smoking? Exactly. It's not effective, you know? It's just not effective. That's not a judgment on people. That's an observation. People just don't change when you just tell them to, you know? It doesn't matter like how much you pressure them or how much data and how many facts you put in front of them. You can't just force someone to change. They have to be ready. That's just human nature. That's how we're wired. It's frustrating. I'm the same fucking way. You know? I was addicted to alcohol, and my wife's telling me, I'm going to leave you if you keep drinking. And look, I'm going through a divorce now, you know? I mean, it is what it is. And, you know, I had to report my problem to the medical board and get investigated and make sure I was a safe doctor and all this stuff. And like, I had to get to that point before I finally quit. So everyone has their bottoms. Right now I want to quit. I can't breathe half the time, and I wheeze. I sound like a 9-year-old breathing when I lay down, and I want to change this. I'm tired of it. So it sounds like you're hitting your bottom, and that's good. That's good. It's miserable. My heart like feels for your, you know, experience right now. That sounds miserable. But if it catalyzes a change that, I think, did I just use the word catalyze because your name made me think of it? Catalea. If that catalyzes a change where in a few years you're way better off, then it's a blessing in disguise, honestly. Because if you don't change now, it'll be even worse by the time you decide to change 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And at some point, you won't be able to really fix the damage that's been done. So my recommendation to you is if you're feeling like this, I'm miserable as fuck, and I'm actually getting some motivation to change, is if you have access to a primary care doctor, I would go see them right away. And then you have full resources at your disposal. They can prescribe you nicotine patches. They can give you a schedule on how to like wean the nicotine down if you want to go that route. The most effective route is using some sort of nicotine replacement combined with health coach counseling, smoking cessation program, and then a medication that helps with craving, like Wellbutrin. Some people use Chantix, which has a lot more side effect issues. But if you really want your best chance, go to your doctor, get on a program. If you really do all the things that you can possibly do that your doctor can help you with, your chances of quitting when you're ready and you want to are still only about 70%. So that means like 30% of people still won't be able to quit, even when they reach that bottom and they go to their doctor. So it's tough, but I believe you can do it. I mean, once you get to that point where you're like, I feel like shit, that's when you need to pounce. Because you know what? Some people get to that point and then they get complacent and they go, I'm fine. I'm used to just feeling like shit. It's just how I am now. And then they've lost that motivation. So I would pounce all over it. Go to the doctor. If you don't have a doctor, DM me in Discord. I can give you some suggestions. I can't give you like formal medical advice, obviously. But I can give you some suggestions. Things that are safe to try without a doctor's prescription. I don't know if this has already been talked about, but why do you think vaping became so cool all of a sudden? I can't understand why everyone got so addicted to it so quickly, especially considering you grew up with the cigarettes are bad ads every 30 minutes. Okay, so vaping is a really good question, because vaping is super popular now. It's like trendy. It's like a trendy thing to do, just like cigarettes were 70 years ago. So, vaping in theoretical, if you're just looking at what vaping is theoretically, it's a cleaner way to deliver the drug to your lungs. I mean, in the end, cigarettes, whatever it is, they're just a delivery device to get nicotine into your system. That's all they are. They're just a nicotine delivery device. Just like, you know, just like French fries, they're just a ketchup delivery device. Come on. Right? That's all they are. Cigarettes are just a way to get nicotine into your system. Well, why don't we just eat nicotine? Or, I mean, some people chew, right? Why do we smoke it? Well, why do we smoke any drug? Is because it has a quick onset. So you get that reward feeling and that reward pathway in your brain that you get with nicotine, and other drugs very fast when you do it through your lungs. The fastest way to do it is directly into your bloodstream. That's why IV drugs are so dangerous. It's so quick and it's so potent that you get addicted very quickly and oftentimes very, very severely. But smoking is not far behind. So when you're exchanging that chemical in your lungs through hot, heated air and gas into your blood, it happens very quickly, and that blood goes right back to your heart, and then guess where 70% of your blood flow goes? Brain. So it's just going from your lungs right to your brain. Now, if you eat something, very different. It takes a lot of time for it to get absorbed. It gets absorbed at a very slow pace. And then most of that blood flow goes to your liver first. And then your liver modifies the chemicals before they even enter your circulation. And then they go back into the veins. Then they go back to your heart. Then they finally go out to your brain and the rest of your body. It takes half hour plus. That's why, like, when people do edible marijuana, for example, they don't feel the effects for 30, 60 minutes. And they're very different effects than smoking it. Smoking it it's quick. It's a few seconds. You should be able to feel it in a few seconds. So vaping is another way to get that exchange of the chemical in your pulmonary circulation and get that quick effect, but it's not nearly as dirty, basically, I guess is a simple word to use. It's a cleaner way to burn chemicals. And so theoretically, it's safer. Now, we don't have long-term data on vaping, so we don't know what it does. We don't know how it affects us long-term. And I remember the first time I was introduced to vaping was when I was in college, which is a long time ago, like 20 years ago. One of my roommates was kind of ahead of the curve, and he's a chemist. And he was like, dude, this is such a cleaner way to smoke weed. And he swore by vaping and then started introducing all of his friends to vaping. And by the end of college, he and all his friends vaped weed instead of, rolling joints. And he swore by it. He's like, this is way cleaner and we still get the effect. In fact, sometimes the effect is more concentrated. And so people are looking for ways to continue smoking habit that's somehow socially acceptable as being safe. Now, the problem with vaping is, let's just say theoretically that physically putting hot vapors into your lung instead of straight burning something and smoking it into your lungs. Let's just say it is way safer. Okay? Let's just say theoretically it is very, very safe. Nicotine as a drug is still very unsafe. It has horrible, horrible effects on your cardiovascular system and puts you at massive risk for heart disease and vascular disease, losing your limbs, getting heart attacks. That stuff's all still there. You just don't have as much direct damage to your lungs. So, is vaping safe? Let's see what Johns Hopkins Medicine says about it. I'm curious what the current research is right now. Because theoretically, it is a safer physical way to introduce a chemical into your lungs. We use vaporizers medically to give medicines. We like, for example, asthma patients use vaporizers when they're having an asthma attack. If they have a really bad asthma attack, vaporizers can help deliver the medicine very quickly compared to an inhaler where most of it gets wasted and absorbed in your oral tissue instead of getting it directly into your lungs. Yeah, so look, it's less harmful than smoking, still not safe. This is why a lot of people do it. Because it's safer. But it's still not safe. It's like saying something's safer than smoking isn't saying anything at all. Smoking's one of the most unsafe things people can do long term to their bodies. So saying like, well, it's safer than smoking, it's like, okay, well, that's not saying anything. That's like saying, well, like, I wasn't as drunk when I drove, so I'm not gonna kill as many people when I crash. It's not safe. It's still not safe. You're saying it's safer than one of the least safe things you can do to your body. But it's a way, in human beings, that we're looking for ways to justify what we do, right? That's human nature. So someone wants to keep smoking, they'll vape and then say, well, it's safer. And then that's it for them. They don't want to address the other part, that it's actually still unsafe. You're going to call the doctor tomorrow? Yeah, people tell me to vape, but to me it's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, do you want to quit? Or do you want to keep smoking but, like, hedge with a little safer version of it and still have problems? That's up to you, I thought it started as a way to help wean people away from cigs and then to help stop them from... No, definitely not. Definitely not. That's the tobacco nicotine industry fooling you into a new product. So here's what happened. Smoking started actually becoming less popular because our country was getting more health conscious and there's more information. And so smoking was declining a little bit in the United States. And they were also getting more restrictions on advertisements and et cetera, and how they get kids hooked on it. And so they came up with a new way. They basically took away that experienced, smokers and drug addicts already knew about, and mass produced it. Mass produced an easy way for people to do it. So, like, my roommate, who was a chemist, he has like a master's in chemistry now, and he's like a super smart like guy who like makes inventions and stuff for like he would come up and be like, hey, I made this thing that does this thing. I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? You just made something that does something cool from scratch? Like, he was that kind of a person. He made his own vaporizer. Nobody was doing that 20 years ago, but the company realized they could make money off this and market it as like a safe alternative to smoking and give all these people a way to justify continuing. They're making a boatload off of it, and they mass produced it. Now, there are people that try to use it to wean, but what's the difference? How is that? How are you actually, you're not really weaning by doing anything different. You're still just delivering the drug to yourself. Why not wean with patches? Why not wean with gum and that kind of stuff? Like, patches are actually a very medically accurate way to wean. You get this slow release, and those patches have a very precise amount of nicotine. You start with the 21 microgram patch, and then you go to the 14, and then you go to the 7, and it slowly delivers that dose over a certain amount of time. There's no better way to do it than that. People just want to hold on to the smoking for just a little longer and use it as an excuse. Again, no judgment. That's just human nature. And some companies figured out a way to manipulate that. I've tried vaping before just to see what the hype is about, but for me, it didn't do that. I went back to cigarettes. Some people are different, though. Some it works. When you say it works, do you mean that now they just vape? Because they're still smoking nicotine and doing all kinds of harm to their body. Or did they actually like wean themselves off of smoking by using vaping? Because to wean, you have to lower the amount you smoke over time. Yeah, my ex never used cigarettes, but he was addicted to vaping when I first met him. Yeah, he probably tried vaping because someone was like, hey, you know, try this. It's a lot safer than smoking cigarettes, and it feels good. Because like I've smoked nicotine before. I've never been a smoker, but I've done hookah, I've done vape. I've even smoked maybe 5-6 cigarettes in my life, a few cigars, just being social or just trying it. And you guess what? Getting high on nicotine feels good. It's a drug. It gives you a rush. It feels good. I mean, it's like the people, I don't know, some people seem to think that like smoking cigarettes isn't like doing drugs. You don't get high off of it. I get high when I smoke nicotine. Lots of people do. It's a very short high though. That feeling doesn't like, it's not like weed where you like, you know, take a few puffs and you're high for hours. Like it's very quick and goes away. And so you keep going back for more and more and more and more and more. And then you're addicted. And then eventually you don't get that high anymore. You're just smoking because you're fucking addicted. I mean, that's addiction. But newbie smokers, you get a high. So it feels good. So yeah, if you try vaping, you're going to feel good. Hey, try this. It feels good. And you don't, smoke in a bunch of smoke. It's just vapors. They have marijuana vapes too. Yep. They have marijuana vapes. Yeah, my roommate in college, that's what he started with, was just vaping marijuana. I do have asthma too, and I smoke. So yes, I'm stupid. You're not stupid. It doesn't make you stupid. You're struggling being addicted to a substance. Nicotine is an addiction. It's one of the most addictive substances I know of. It's extremely hard to get people off of it. And not only that, but there's psychological factors there, there's social factors. It's very built into our society as this like accepted drug, basically. Alcohol and nicotine are no different, in my opinion, than marijuana. They're no different. They have effects on your brain. They make you feel good in different ways. We have different delivery systems for them, and alcohol and nicotine just happen to be legal. And honestly, both of them should be illegal. If only thing you were looking at was, do they have any benefit to your health, and do they have detriment to your health? The answer for both alcohol and nicotine would be no to the first one. So that's a myth, by the way, about alcohol, that it's like somehow healthy for human beings to drink moderate amounts. It's not. You can cherry pick things that it actually can sometimes improve, but those improvements always come with a cost. And the World Health Organization did a giant study on it in 195 countries. And their conclusion was no amount of alcohol is healthy or safe for a society, period. And so guess what? We tried to ban it in the 20s, 100 years ago, and the prohibition happened. That's why it's still legal. And nicotine it's legal because of lobbying, basically, is my opinion. Lying and lobbying. Both of those things are no different than... In fact, I would even argue that marijuana has medicinal use, whereas alcohol and nicotine do not. Yet marijuana is illegal. So, like, for some reason, it's just alcohol and nicotine are accepted. And so they're very easy to get hooked on, and people don't think that they're doing anything bad to themselves until something bad happens. So you're not stupid. You're addicted to something that's been marketed very, very well. And you tried it when you were probably young, and you got addicted to it. And now you're in a predicament because you got to, get out of your addiction, or it's going to hurt you. I mean, you're already having trouble breathing, etc. That's only going to get worse. So you're not stupid. You're a human being who got addicted to something. It happens. So, I mean, look at me. I'm trained to treat addicts, and I got addicted to something. So, just people are really susceptible to that stuff. Some people are not. Some people are actually pretty immune to addiction, and I'm jealous as hell. You want to know what's funny, though? Sure. What's funny? And while you're typing your story, what I was talking about earlier, like vaping is still bad for your heart and lungs. Nicotine has bad effects. And even the vape smoke is still not healthy for your lungs, by the way. So it's just as addictive. It's still bad for your heart and lungs. It is safer, but it's you're comparing safety to like one of the worst things you can do to yourself, preventative health wise. So that's sort of my summary on vaping. It's a barely safer version of smoking cigarettes. Don't recommend it. But if you absolutely have to smoke and you're not going to quit and you're never going to quit, you don't want to quit, then yes, I would say vape over traditional cigarettes. At my college, there's a spot that everyone knows as a smoker spot, and it's on the outside walkway of the library next to a sign that says no smoking allowed. That area is littered with stomped out cigarettes. I believe it. I believe it. Society turns a blind eye to smoking. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with the aftermath of arguing with a bunch of smokers over and over and over and over again. It's like, you know what? They're going to fucking do it whether we say they can or not. And they just let it go. I mean, I see doctors and nurses smoking outside of hospitals when they're not supposed to. No smoking on the entire fucking campus. And there's doctors and nurses standing outside the hospital smoking together. And no one says anything. And you know what? I don't want to be the one that goes and says shit either to those people, because it's not going to stop them. Unless some, actual authority figure stops them. It's just so ingrained in our life, in our society. Oh, that reminds me of another story, Latte. So, as part of my alcohol recovery, I went to a rehabilitation facility. And they had all these very strict rules, like extremely strict rules. No alcohol anywhere on the campus. No drugs anywhere on the campus. If you are caught doing any of those, you are kicked the fuck out. Like, if you are caught even like trying to communicate with somebody to get you alcohol, to get you drugs, you are kicked the fuck out. They didn't even allow us to buy caffeinated beverages when we did store runs. So we were allowed like to leave the facility, certain times and go to the store like supervised and buy snacks and like, buy books or magazines or newspapers or whatever the fuck. But no caffeine, no if you contacted anybody outside the facility and they were suspicious, kicked out, because like people would go like meet their drug guy in the parking lot of the store. Guess what you were allowed to buy? Cigarettes. And guess where you're allowed to smoke them? All over the fucking campus they had smoking pits. And they had built-in smoke breaks at rehab. You can't even buy caffeine at the store. And you're there because you're addicted to something. Whether it's alcohol or cocaine or heroin or whatever the fuck it is. You're addicted to something, maybe many things even. No caffeine. No sex was allowed. No pornography was allowed. But you could have all the cigarettes you wanted and smoke all the cigarettes you could smoke during the smoke times. Isn't that insane? I thought that was fucked up, man. And so, as a doctor too, like I was a patient there, but I'm also still a doctor who treats addiction. And I talked to the guys that ran the place, and they said, yeah, we tried to have a smoke-free campus, and we couldn't get anyone to quit their main addiction. So if they were trying to quit heroin at the same time as quitting smoking, they were not going to quit their heroin. We would not be successful in helping them quit their heroin. So we found that it was a necessary evil to allow people to smoke while they were there to help them quit a worse addiction. That's how addictive smoking is. That's how addictive nicotine is. It's nuts, right? This is the only spot we see someone smoke. I think it's partially because that specific door isn't as used as other ones. I wonder if it started as like a fuck you. You know, there's like a sign that says no smoking there, and you know, and God damn it, no one's gonna tell me what to do, and they go smoke their cigarettes and you know, stomp their cigarettes out in front of the sign. Okay, but wait, if you wanted to smoke or drink again, you could have just gotten yourself kicked out and then gone doing whatever you wanted. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you're there voluntarily. You're not like a prisoner. You are on this campus, on a facility where there are rules, and it's fairly strict, and it's designed to keep your focus on interacting with other addicts and alcoholics, going to your classes and your therapy sessions, and like staying sober as fuck. But if you don't want to be there, they can't keep you there. They can't force you to stay. But there's consequences for a lot of people if they like. If I left, do you know what the consequence was for me if I left rehab? You lose your medical license. You go through rehab or you can't practice medicine anymore. So, you know, there's choices and consequences to everything. It's not like I can't leave. Sure, you can leave anytime. Go ahead and leave. But we're taking your medical license if you leave. And there were a lot of people like that. You can't see your kids again if you leave. You know, you're a heroin addict. And if you leave, you lose custody of your kids. Like, there's tons of consequences for people to stay. And there were people that left. Even with those kinds of consequences, they would be like, fuck this, I'm leaving. I'm getting my shit. I can't take this anymore. I need heroin. I need meth. I need whatever it is. I need a drink. And they would leave. What kind of campus is that? Yeah, that's what I thought at first. But the people who ran it, who were very well trained and like had done all kinds of data and studies on it, they said we are not successful with anyone if we keep them from smoking while they're here. But we have some success if we at least allow them to smoke. They probably did. All these international kids that smoke there, and kids who are known for smoking and wearing Gucci to their ATMs. Yeah, probably a lot of well-off, entitled people who are just like, fuck you, I'm going to smoke if I want. So, well, Catalea, I'm really, really happy for you that you've gotten to the point where you're ready to quit. I think you can do it. It sounds to me like, just from a professional perspective, when you're saying things like, I feel this symptom, I don't like how I feel, I'm ready to quit, I don't want to do it for internal reasons. I think that you should pounce all over it. And if you have a doctor you can go to and you have insurance, you can afford it, go right now. I'm also, I'm willing to chat more about it off stream in DMs if you want, and just give you some basic suggestions. But if you go see your doctor, they're going to have the whole catalog at their disposal to help you. So, wow, this is fun. It's a good talk. Good talk tonight. I know we have a lot of lurkers, probably a lot of people just listening to me, and
hey buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life. I'm paying you to sing.
That's awesome, Kat. Well, keep us posted. I mean,
don't. So you will listen to every damn word I have to say.
And if you want support from me and from other people in our stream and community, like we have the health goals, and we have the good news for good days. We have the vent it out for bad days. And, the thing with quitting smoking and like quitting substances and quitting and making life changes in general is like, there's a lot of universal experience there. Maybe not everybody in the Discord server, or on this stream or has like quit smoking before, but I can guarantee you that more than half of all of us involved in this discussion have had something where we've had to change. We need to change our diet. We need to lose some weight. We need to be more active. We need to be healthier mentally. We need to, stop, another substance like alcohol or, pain pills or whatever it is. There's a lot of universal experience there. And I think, I'm hoping that you can find some support. I'm not going to name anybody or call anyone out, but I know for a fact that there's multiple people that have recovered from addiction and alcohol that in this community that I've talk to privately on Discord. So, and I'm sure some of them will be open to. I'm ready. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, of course. And then what's something that should be fake but isn't? What do you mean something that should be fake but isn't? What is it? I'm regarding the human body. I think I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question. I'm sure I'll need all the support again. You will need support. You will need support. I mean, that's something that I learned the hard way. I'm somebody who's used to being kind of independent and fierce, and I'm if I want to do something, I'm gonna make a plan, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna get A's in school, and I'm gonna go to medical school, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna lift weights, and I'm gonna get strong, and I'm gonna lose weight, and I can do these things if I really put my mind to it. Fuck, man, making that kind of change, like quitting alcohol. I'm so glad I've had so many people in my life to talk to about it and support me, and things like sponsors and other people in groups and in rehab, and like I've even met people through the stream that are now like sober friends, and we talk to each other and support each other over DMs and stuff. So yeah, you can't do it alone. I don't think you can do it alone. You've got to reach out and accept help from people, which is not easy for everyone to do. I know it's not easy for me. It is now, but it didn't used to be. I used to be like, fuck you, I can do it myself. I don't want to burden people. We're all here to support you. You're so sweet, Latte. I love you. I'll definitely keep y'all updated. Like what sounds like it shouldn't exist, but it does exist. Can you give me an example, or is this like a riddle or something? You're looking forward to being able to breathe at night. That is a great thing to be able to look forward to. That reminds me of when I stopped drinking. I was really looking forward to not having hangovers in the morning. As stupid as that sounds. I'm so glad I won't feel like utter shit every morning I wake up. Because I would wake up every morning feeling like death, go to work, and on my way to work, I would say, that was the last night. I'm never doing that again. Holy shit, that's awful. This feels awful. How do I make it through the day? I'm never doing that again. And then by 5 o'clock, I was hitting the store for whiskey or wine or whatever the fuck I was going to drink that night. Right back at it. I did that 1,000 times. Literally 1,000 times. And then when I finally was like, holy shit, I'm not hungover. This feels so good. Like, you're gonna feel so much better even in just a month of quitting. Just a month. So for elective surgeries, it is now standard of care that if your surgery is not urgent and not life-threatening, you cannot get your surgery until you have proven that you've quit smoking for 4 weeks. And they have metabolite tests they can do to prove that you've smoked in the last 4 weeks. And they will postpone your surgery until you're clear. And the reason is not a punishment or anything. It's because if you quit smoking for 4 weeks, you have enough improvement in lung and heart function. And if you do nothing else, you don't lose any weight, you don't do any exercise, you don't change your diet, all you do is quit smoking, your outcomes in terms of not dying during surgery go up significantly from just quitting smoking for 4 weeks. So it's now required. You have to quit for 4 weeks if you're doing, like, let's say you're doing an elective, like, knee surgery, for an injury that hurts, makes it hard to walk. You need surgery to fix it, but like, you're not going to die if you don't get it. They won't do that surgery until you prove that you've quit smoking for 4 weeks. So you're going to already start feeling significant improvement, like getting significant physiologic improvement in only 4 weeks of quitting. So I don't know if that helps motivate you, but sometimes it does motivate people. I'm just wondering, LOL, for example, fanfics about M&Ms shouldn't exist, but they do. What about the human body makes you think that sounds like it's fake, but okay. Fact about the human body. Okay. Do you know how long, if you took all of your blood vessels in your circulation and you like extended them all out in like a straight line, like a hose. Do you know how long it would be? How long it would stretch out? You can just Google it. Reach the moon or the sun? Actually, how far away is the moon? How far is the moon from the Earth? I don't think it's quite to the moon, but it's getting there. It'll get you a decent distance. All right, the moon is 238,000 miles away. But you can get close if you had about 4 people extend out their cardiovascular systems into like a rope between the moon and Earth. It would get you there. It's about 60,000 miles. Isn't that insane? You like look at your body and you're like, how the fuck is there 60,000 miles worth of circulatory tubing in me? It's the capillaries. It's because they're like super tiny and they're so dense. But if you were to extend them all out, technically it would reach about 60,000 miles. Fucking crazy, right? So I learned some of this stuff because as a doctor, like you get invited to trivia teams sometimes because people are like, oh, they always have medical questions in trivia. So if we have a doctor on our team, we just won't miss any of those. Well, the first time I went to trivia under that invitation, I was like a third or fourth year med student. I went to a bar. I didn't get a single question right because they asked stuff like that. I'm like, they don't teach that in medical school. Like, you know, I could tell you like how to treat diabetes or something, but I don't know how long your capillaries are if you extend them out to the moon. How the fuck am I supposed to know that? So I started like studying medical trivia so I could at least maybe answer something on trivia nights, you know. Oh, we have a doctor. And then they all look at you just so disappointed because you didn't get any medical questions right. In fact, one of them got it right. Why do we even invite you? I hate it when people say we should have flat stomachs. Like, excuse me, I have 7 meters of intestines in me. My stomach can physically not be flat. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about like 6-pack abs and stuff. People who have 6-pack abs have very, very low body weights and very, very low body fat percentages. Usually, you can have flat stomach with higher body weight, but it takes tons and tons and tons of training and fat loss, and but some of it's, you know, your natural metabolism and how your body shapes. And really, what really matters more than anything for your health is how much activity you get. So unless you're like morbidly obese, as long as you're not obese, if you're somewhere in the range of like low normal to overweight, even on the higher end of overweight by body mass index, and you're physically active, meaning like 2.5 to 3 hours of cardiovascular exercise a week, you are way better off than somebody who is in the normal, healthy, you know, weight range and does no activity. So one of the slang like terms in medicine right now is that sitting is the new smoking. Because the more we study it, the more we find like it's really about physical activity and not about your weight and appearance that depends on your health. Now, somebody who has a 6-pack, we automatically think, well, that person's healthy because, you know what? They probably are, because it takes at least the minimum amount of activity to even look like that. So they probably are healthy. But somebody who has, you know, has a dad bod, they might be super active. You know, you might be shocked. You take them out on a bike or on a run and they'll kick your ass because they work out 5 hours a week. So that's really what matters, is physical activity, unless you're really, really overweight or underweight. Actually, underweight is also highly unhealthy. So, what's up, Noble Man? How are you? We're just kind of wrapping up a little medical chat tonight. We talked about COVID and COVID vaccine progress. Debunked a lot of the stuff in media about like cures, and like kind of the dilemmas we're in right now. With what do we do with quarantine versus disease spread, and then we talked about smoking cessation and addiction, and like how do you positively motivate for change, and now we're just talking about like medical trivia. We've kind of run out of things to talk about. and actually right now we're talking about what's healthy, like that, having like six pack doesn't necessarily mean you're not having a six pack doesn't mean you're unhealthy. Unpopular opinion, but it's cute when someone has a little chub on their stomach. That's not an unpopular opinion anymore. Body image and like what people expect of body image has changed a lot. And I think people are more accepting of, thick, being a little thick. In fact, I think it's body images are a lot healthier than they were 20 years ago. People would not have been celebrating somebody for having like, thick butt, thick thighs, or, big hips, or, a dad bod. Like, nobody would have been celebrating that 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was all about anorexia and plastic surgery. And so I think body image has improved quite a bit. But yeah, dad bods are like cool now, So fuck yeah. Go dad bods. You're a little chubby? Yeah. And you know what? Being a little chubby is fine, actually, health-wise, as long as you're active. So it's all about being physically active. Getting your heart rate up a few hours a week. Doing a little bit of weight-bearing exercise. And, you're good to go. Fat but fit is kind of the slang there. It's my favorite thing because I'm fat. Well, I'm not fit right now, but I've been fat but fit many times. I need to be better about my exercise. But, yeah, dad bod. Dad bods are in. You're a mini teddy bear. That's cute. Well, it's getting close to 11, and I think we had a pretty good talk tonight. I think we're at a good place to segue. What kind of content should we raid? I feel like we should always do a raid just to like say hi to a new streamer and give them a little boost, because I love it. I know I love it when I get raided. It gives a boost to me in the stream. Let's see who's on. We could raid Mochi. He's really nice. He's just chatting right now. Let's see what he's chatting. Haunted Mochi. Oh. Oh, you got me. All right, I'll do it. Hold on, let me grab the dumbbell. I actually went up in weight. So I was doing 25 pounds. So I moved it up to 30. Here, I'll make the camera bigger. I'll do 5 on each arm. Whew, that's definitely heavier. That's definitely heavier than the 25s that I was doing last week. I don't know if I could do 10 on my weak arm, on my left arm. I think I could do 10 on my strong arm. Yeah, this was a great stream. Great stream. I had fun. I'm gonna raid us over to Mochi's channel now. He is very nice. He's actually bilingual. He speaks Japanese too. He plays DVD. Wait, where is he? I don't see him in his actual stream. He just has an away thing. Well, maybe he's not really there. He's like, he's just away from his screen. I know this guy doesn't play. The doctor will see you now. Whoops. Sorry. I know this guy doesn't play the games that we play. He plays Counter-Strike. But as a doctor, I find his stream fascinating and really inspiring. He's very open about his medical condition on his stream. So he has a medical condition that basically destroyed a lot of his face. And he's blind. He's like legally blind, and he has to sit. I mean, he has to sit literally on the computer screen to see it. And he is like super high ranked at Counter-Strike. And he sets his camera up so you can see him like he's literally like as close as I am to my microphone. Like he's that close to his computer screen. And he plays high-level competitive Counter-Strike. It's super impressive and inspiring. Strong man. Top. You guys. It's only 30 pounds. It's not that big of a deal. Bong soon if you haven't seen it. Okay, I'll take a look. I'll look it up. So, I don't know. Does that interest you guys? I think it's really at least interesting, even though he doesn't play the same games we do. I always think it's really cool when I see people with like medical problems that's a pretty bad, like, physical disability, and he's a high level gamer with it, and he has a successful stream. He has 230,000 followers doing this, and people have donated money and stuff. I think he gets a lot of support because of his medical condition. All right, let's fucking do it. I don't think I've ever rated him before because he doesn't play games that we do. All right, here we go. All right, thank you all for the awesome stream. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow because like school is back. So Friday, Saturday night works best for a lot of the stream community. So I'll be back tomorrow night or tomorrow during the afternoon, and we'll have some fun. Thank you all for joining me. Good night.